It's amazing to think that out of all the shows that we've had in recent years, or at least in the past decades, that Doctor Who is quite possibly the longest and most popular BBC drama show in history. And not just being a reboot, but a continuation of the story from 1963. New actors and old actors returning, old enemies and new enemies, old writers and new writers coming together to bring their unique vision of the madman in the big blue box. It's still amazing to see how much this revived show, nearly 60 years running, has left such a massive impact for so many people, and now I have finally decided to do a marathon of all Doctor Who stories. Now what I mean by that is the Revived series. I don't really have enough time to go over the classic seasons. This has been a massive passionate project I've always wanted to do ever since I did the Attic reviews back in 2017. I know last year would have been a perfect time to do this since it was like the 15th anniversary of the Revived show, but give me a break, I didn't have enough time to check my calendar. However, with the BBC announcing the return of former showrunner Russell T Davies for the 60th anniversary and onwards, I figured now is a good time to travel back to 2005 and take a look back at his time as showrunner. Now obviously the show has got 12 seasons now with a 13th one on the way, and there are over 500 stories to go over, so much so that I had no idea how I was going to structure this. Now I finally come to the right structure. I will only be talking about the stories of Season 1 to Season 3, and for the record I will not be including Christmas specials. I will only be talking about the stories, the character performances, and the production work. These are all my personal opinions towards each story. If you like or dislike any of them, that's fine. I will only be talking about my personal feelings towards the stories and how much of an impact it left to me as a child as well as an adult. See which ones have held up the most and which ones haven't. So be sure to join me for the trip of a lifetime to the parting of the ways, arrive on a new Earth to meet our doomsday, and fly off to Utopia with the last of the Time Lords. Join me for this marathon from Series 1 to Season 3. This is Whovember. If you're going to make a modern revival of a classic show to a new generation, you're going to have to get it right first time, and not only that, give a unique spin to it, something that would grab the modern audience's attention. Well, thankfully, Russell T Davies gave us a good one with the first episode, Rose. The pilot episode begins with Rose Tyler, played by pop star Billie Piper, living an ordinary life with her gossipy mother Jackie, played by Camille Corelli, and her boyfriend Mickey Smith, played by Noel Clarke. Until one day whilst at work, she gets attacked by a group of walk-in shop mannequins, only to be saved by a strange figure called the Doctor, played by Christopher Eccleston. Even though he saved her, he does accidentally get her involved with an alien invasion plot by a plastic alien race known as the Nestian Consciousness. But the main question here is, can the Doctor be trusted, and is anyone safe around him? Now with a title like Rose, you are going to get the majority of the episode centred mostly around the character of Rose Tyler, which some people may comment on being a little unfair when introducing a new incarnation of the title character, but to Russell T Davies' credit, when you're introducing a new audience with a premise like this, you are going to have to start off with something simple. Plus, I think having your first episode focused from the companion's perspective was a good move, pretty much in comparison with the unearthly child. For having this episode structured as a standalone episode does help newcomers, as well as a new generation, be introduced to the show, as well as leaving it open for them to carry on watching, as well as familiarizing old viewers with nostalgic Easter eggs, familiar props and monsters, as well as presenting new ideas to an already established universe. Let's start off by talking about our main cast, particularly Rose Tyler and the Doctor. I do not want to talk much about Christopher Eccleston's portrayal of the Doctor in one episode, as there is a lot more to explore with him, but I might as well just start off by saying this episode gave him a fantastic entrance. With the simple first line of run, the chase down the corridors, a rushed conversation, carrying an explosive in his jacket, using a sonic screwdriver to damage an elevator lift, and the hilarious exchange of names, is the best way to show off this modern incarnation. Christopher Eccleston as the Doctor is pretty chilling, threatening, and yet charming and funny at the same time. Scenes like the Orton chase, the one long-shot chat with Rose Tyler, and the Earth-revolving monologue leaves you wanting to know more about him, but it still leaves you asking, would you like the answer of where this Doctor is coming from? He may appear human, but we all know he is not. Rose Tyler was normally considered to be the perfect companion. While we have got a long way to see whether or not that statement is true, I don't really see that just yet. But that's not to say Rose is a terrible companion. In fact, the way she is played out specifically in this episode is actually human-like. Someone with a normal life, a dead-end job, a romance which is, let's be honest, probably not going to go anywhere, and a small detour of being a bronze medal gymnast that's actually pretty funny. Only to then get unemployed, with no chances of new jobs, and her life being interrupted by strange supernatural events. But then this man comes into your life and tells you that there is a much better way to experience life, and a wider universe to explore. Who wouldn't act the same way Rose does in this? That scene where she grabs a chain line to save the Doctor is a way of saying, well, I've got no job, my life is probably going to get messed up after this, but what else have I got to live for? However, her laughing at her traumatized mother's cry on the phone, and that kiss she gave Mickey at the end as she runs off with another man, that's just mean. Now, in terms of bringing Doctor Who to a modern audience, it would have been so easy for the show to just shoehorn in Easter eggs or nostalgic items, monsters or characters for literally no reason, just to make old fans happy, or because it was popular in a different time, leaving the newcomers with so many questions about continuity. Thankfully, the episode doesn't do that, as it does establish a wider universe with the scenes with Clive, played by Mark Benton. I think having the Doctor's universe being told through conspiracy theories and hidden records was a smart idea. It's a good way to leave the audience, who may not understand the show at first, curious to know more about this Doctor and whether or not it is safe to be around something or someone like that. But you know what the smartest thing Davis has done for this idea? He didn't just make Clive a crazy conspiracy nut. When we first meet him, he's actually a jolly, lovable husband and father. He makes dad jokes and hangs out with his wife and son. He's a regular nice man with an interest in the supernatural. So much so that when he reaches his demise at the Orton attack, I actually felt bad for him. It was literally a character death that flat out terrified me. And that's only in the first episode. Having the Ortons and the Nesting Consciousness being our first monster to a modern show is again a good move. Since 2005 was a kind of capitalist era, having window shop mannequins break through window glass is both funny and kinda creepy to experience. In fact, their introduction is almost like out of a horror film. They're quiet, they're blank-faced and slow movements, but they are still a threat not to be messed with. The same can be said with the Orton Mickey scene, being both funny and creepy to watch. Although, don't be surprised to get a few raised eyebrows whilst revisiting that scene. But that's not to say this episode is perfect. There are still some dated fake effects that really don't hold up well. Some of the sound mixing is a little messy at some points, and maybe one or two moments which might not hold up now, like some moments of Rose's behaviour towards Mickey and Jackie. But those are just mainly nitpicks. Why? One simple thing. The production work. They are perfectly handled when they need to be. The opening shot of Earth, which becomes a trend in some parts of the Russell T Davies era, the plastic outfits of the Ortons are so convincing, the shots of London, particularly at night, are gorgeous to look at. The camera movement and editing is spot on, especially in the reveal of the TARDIS interior. I could go on about it, but this video is already getting longer. But I'll just say, everything done from the perspective of Rose is spot on. And with that, I guess the best way to wrap up this opening episode is, it may be small, but it's much bigger than we can imagine, with a much wider dimension to explore. Some production work or companion moments might leave a sour taste, but in terms of introducing a new modern experience, yet being respectful to the classic show with a compelling lead actor and a relatable companion, then you've got yourself a good show in your hands. If you get the chance, revisit this episode again. And with that, the trip of a lifetime begins, and it is going to be fantastic.